They thought he'd never show up. But when Ice Cube walked into that courtroom, the entire Diddy trial changed forever. He wasn't there for the cameras. He wasn't there for headlines. He came with receipts, and what he exposed cracked Hollywood's deepest, darkest illusion wide open. This isn't just about Diddy anymore. It's about power, silence, and the price of saying no. And by the end of Cube's testimony, no one in that courtroom, not even Diddy, would ever be the same again.
We know what's next.
No one expected Ice Cube to walk into that courtroom. It was day 9 of the Diddy trial. The air thick with scandal, cameras flashing, reporters buzzing, and then without warning, the doors opened. In stepped Cube. No entourage, no theatrics, just a man with a folder in his hand and a storm in his eyes. The entire room froze. Diddy's lawyers whispered fast. The judge paused mid-sentence, and even the jurors sat straighter. Because whatever was in that folder, everyone could feel it. Something was about to shift. Cube didn't come to be seen. He came to speak. And once he opened that folder, it was clear. This wasn't about one man's downfall. This was about a machine, one that feeds on silence, punishes resistance, and protects the people who control it. And Ice Cube, he was done staying quiet. Ice Cube didn't waste time. He looked the jury dead in the eye and said, "This ain't about music, it's about control." You could hear a pin drop, because what he was describing wasn't just an industry, it was a system, one built on manipulation, fueled by fear, and designed to keep the powerful untouchable. Cube called it the circle, that invisible club in Hollywood that no one dares to name, but everyone knows exists. The red carpet smiles, the champagne handshakes, the late night invites that come with no address, just a time and a black SUV. You're not brought in because they like you, Cube said. You're brought in so they can own you. And when you stop playing along, that's when the machine kicks in. First, they cancel your meetings. Then come the planted stories, the strange calls, the subtle threats that never show up in writing, but hit like a wrecking ball. It's all strategic, silent, clean, and effective. Cube wasn't speculating. He said he'd seen it happen over and over. Artists with real talent, real vision, brought into the golden circle and handed success, but only if they signed the unspoken contract. Smile, obey, be grateful. And if you refuse, you're not just rejected, you're erased. The industry doesn't just move on from you, it deletes you. And then Cube turned slightly toward the defendant's table, locking eyes with Diddy. He wasn't just in the circle, he said. He was pulling the strings. The moment Cube said Jamie Foxx's name, the courtroom tightened. You could feel the shift, like everyone suddenly realized this went way deeper than they thought. Cube didn't hesitate. "You want to know why I'm here?" he asked the jury. "Because they tried to break someone I respect, Jamie Foxx." He explained how it always starts the same way. Smiles, flattery, exclusivity. Jamie was skyrocketing. The Oscar buzz, the blockbuster roles, the effortless charm that made him magnetic. And that's when they noticed. The phone calls began, the party invites, the compliments that felt too rehearsed to be real. "First it's praise," Cube said. "Then it's control." He described the infamous basketball nights, private gatherings with no phones allowed, blacked out SUVs, and a guest list, curated like a secret ritual. But it wasn't about basketball. It was about watching, testing, seeing who would obey, who would ask questions, and who needed to be handled. Jamie played it cool, Cube said. Polite, careful, but he never fully gave in. And that's when the shift happened. Projects began slipping away. His name started disappearing from headlines and surfacing in tabloid rumors. Then came the health scare. In 2023. Sudden, unexplained, and eerily timed. Cube didn't say it outright, but his tone said everything. That wasn't a coincidence. That was a warning. And just when the courtroom was already holding its breath, Cube dropped the next bomb. Jamie wasn't the only one. The machine had help, and the next 2 names would shake the room to its core. When Ice Cube said the name Oprah, a ripple went through the courtroom, and then he followed it with Quincy Jones. That's when it got real. He wasn't vague. He was surgical. He told the jury that right as Jamie Foxx was riding high from Ray, right when he was becoming unstoppable, he got a phone call. Not from a producer, not from a friend, from Oprah. At first, Jamie thought it was support. He was winning, ascending. He thought she was calling to say congratulations, but she wasn't. She told him he was blowing it, Cube said flatly. She didn't offer advice. She offered a name, Quincy Jones, said he'd help Jamie get his career back on track. Cube's voice was steady, but his words cut. It wasn't mentorship, It was recruitment. According to Cube, Jamie was taken to Quincy's house. Not for a celebration, not for guidance. It felt off, like something else entirely. Jamie told Cube it was one of the strangest nights of his life. Nothing specific, just fragments, a vibe, a look in his eyes that Cube said he'll never forget. It didn't feel like help, Cube said. It felt like training. Oprah called it responsibility. Quincy called it legacy. But Jamie told Cube it felt like being handed off, like being processed through a system you can't escape. That wasn't guidance, Jamie said. That was instruction. And then Cube delivered the line that made people shift in their seats. Quincy ain't just a producer, he's the godfather. Not in music, in control, in access, in silence. But this wasn't just about Jamie anymore. Cube said he'd heard the same stories, the same fear from other men. Talented, famous, now forgotten. And when the courtroom leaned in, desperate to know more, Cube finally turned the spotlight on himself. Until this point, Ice Cube had been telling other people's stories. But then his voice shifted, lower, heavier. And he said, I went to one of those parties, just once. He described it like a scene from a movie, only there was nothing glamorous about it. No flyer, no official invite, just a name, a time, and a black SUV waiting outside his hotel. They called it networking, Cube said. That's what they always call it. The SUV wound through the Hollywood Hills and pulled up to a massive mansion in Beverly Hills. The gate clanged shut behind him, louder than it should have. Like a warning he didn't recognize until it was too late. His phone was taken at the door. No cameras, they said, but plenty of people were watching. Inside, it wasn't a party. Not really. The lights were too low. There was no music, no laughter. Just soft voices, shadowy corners, and security at every turn, not protecting guests, but controlling them. The whole place felt off. Then came the rooms, unmarked, some slightly open. Cube said he heard things, strange things, sounds that didn't match the mood. Behind one door, he caught a glimpse he wished he could forget. Familiar faces, celebrities, big names, but they didn't look like themselves. Some looked dazed, some looked scared, some looked like they didn't even know where they were. Then Cube turned a corner and saw it. A man he admired, slumped on a couch, eyes wide open, blank, and across from him, a camera, silent, recording. That was it, Cube said. He didn't ask questions, didn't say goodbye. He walked straight out, got in the car, and stayed silent the entire ride back. But the next day, he got a call. No caller ID, no greeting, just one line. We saw you leave. There were no threats, no follow-up. But he didn't need one. I understood the message, he told the jury, and it stayed with him for years. Changed how he saw the industry, how he saw success. That wasn't a party, he said. That was a trap. Then he turned to Diddy, calm, composed, and said it clearly. You didn't just ruin lives. You filmed them first. The courtroom was dead silent when Cube said it. You didn't just party, you recorded the parties. That's when the real horror began to surface. Cube told the jury that what Diddy and his circle collected over the years wasn't just clout, it was leverage. Flash drives, photos, audio, footage, files, all hidden, all weaponized. According to Cube, people weren't just invited to events. They were surveilled at them, secretly filmed, their trust baited, their dignity recorded, their reputations kept like files in a vault, waiting to be used. You want to know why so many stayed silent? He asked the prosecution. Ask how many got a flash drive in the mail. Ask how many got a blocked call playing audio of something they don't even remember. Ask how many careers vanished after they said no. Then he spoke about the singer, young, gifted, buzzing with potential. She got invited to one of those nights, just one. She refused to sign with Bad Boy. And within months, her image was destroyed. Labeled difficult, unstable. Her label dropped her. Her name erased from award show lineups. Her calls unanswered. You think that was coincidence? Cube asked. That was punishment. This wasn't gossip. It was infrastructure, a machine, a system built to crush resistance quietly and completely. Diddy, he said, didn't act alone. This kind of erasure required collaborators, the blogs that printed the whispers, the execs who pulled the strings behind the scenes, the insiders who knew and chose to look away. Then Cube dropped the line that made the whole room freeze. I came here trying to figure out what Diddy did. But the real question is, how many people helped him do it? Because in that moment, it wasn't just about Diddy anymore. It was about the entire network that protected him, the machine that turned silence into currency and obedience into survival. By now, the trial didn't feel like a trial anymore. It felt like a reckoning, and Ice Cube made sure no one mistook this as just another celebrity scandal. He leaned forward, eyes locked on the jury, and said, "They don't just shape what we listen to. They shape what we believe, what we fear, who we follow. He called it what it was. Not an industry, but a machine. One that takes real identity, real trauma, and repackages it as entertainment. Well, you think it's freedom? He asked. Number, it's scripted. Every album that's pushed, every movie that's greenlit, not by chance, by design. And then he dropped the line that hit like a body blow. The same people who push prison music own the prisons. The courtroom flinched, but Cube didn't stop. He said this was what Tupac had been warning about before they silenced him, before he got too political, before he started pointing at the ones behind the curtain. This machine doesn't make stars, Cube said. It manufactures influence, and it erases anyone who tries to use that influence for truth. He wasn't talking in metaphors. He was naming a blueprint, the way the system brings in talent, gives them fame, then pulls the strings behind the scenes. Smile here, sit there, say this. And if you go off script, if you speak out, you're not just dropped, you're dismantled. He turned to the jury and said it plainly. This isn't about Diddy anymore. It's about how many Diddys are out there. How many people got rich off silence? How many are still playing dumb while collecting checks off other people's pain? This was no longer a case. It was a confession, not from the accused, but from someone who survived the system and came back to expose it. Ice Cube stood taller now, not just as a witness, but as a man who'd finally laid down the weight of decades. And then, without a hint of performance, he said it. I was scared. The entire courtroom froze. I was scared because I knew what I'd seen, what I'd heard, what I'd been invited into. And I stayed quiet because I thought if I didn't say anything, I'd be left alone. He looked straight at the jury, unwavering. But silence doesn't protect you. It only delays the damage. Silence makes you a collaborator. Then Cube reached into the folder he'd carried in, the one that had stunned the courtroom the moment he walked through the door. From it, he pulled a single photograph. This was me, he said. 1991, bright-eyed. Thought I could change the game without losing myself. He stared at it for a moment, like he was mourning a version of himself the world never got to know. Then slowly and deliberately, he tore the photo in half. That version of me? He didn't make it, but the one standing here now, he wasn't scared anymore. Cube turned to Diddy, calm, cold, clear. You built a kingdom out of other people's silence, he said. You called it success, but it was slavery. You didn't just throw parties. You built prisons, emotional, psychological. You filled them with people who thought they were being celebrated, but they were really being watched, controlled, used. You broke people, and then you filmed it. He paused, then looked out at the gallery, the press, the world beyond those walls. To every artist watching this, every new kid dreaming of fame, understand this. Before they hand you the keys to your dream, they're gonna ask you for something back. Your voice, your dignity, sometimes everything. And by the time you realize what you gave up, he said, it's already too late. Then he walked back to the witness stand, placed the torn photo gently on top of the folder, and faced the judge. I don't know what you'll do with all this, he said. But now you can't pretend you didn't hear it. Now you know, all of you. He turned to Diddy one last time. You thought no one would speak. You thought everyone was buried, bought, or broken. But the silence is gone now. The door you locked for so long, it's wide open. And with that, Ice Cube stepped down. He didn't look at the press. He didn't glance back at the jury. He walked out like a man who had carried something unbearable for years and had finally set it down. Just before reaching the door, he stopped, turned slightly, and said, they didn't kill Jamie. They didn't kill me. They just made us louder. And then he was gone. But what he left behind wasn't just testimony. It was a warning, a reckoning, and the spark of a firestorm that Hollywood could never put back in the bottle.